Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023 or by going to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org.
And yes, a big thank you to Karen. Welcome to Trudge the Road this week. We're your host. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry, and I am a sober alcoholic.
And this week, we're going to focus a lot on the family. We do have some guests coming up. We're going to be talking to Bill and Pam Roberts, who have a very powerful story. As a matter of fact, so powerful, we've rolled it into 2 segments.
It's amazing, and I think that it will touch the hearts of many out there who have an addicted person in their family, a spouse, a child, a parent, whatever, to get some information about not only what you can do for that addicted person, but most importantly, what you can do for yourself. And you know, as a drug and alcohol counselor, I was so ill-prepared in dealing with the issues of the family. And this is going back a lot of years. I've since re-educated myself and picked up on a few things. But, you know, going back 20 years, the seriousness of how the family is affected by this disease was brought to my attention by the wife of a client that I was treating, who looked me right in the eyes and said, "I can't live like this anymore. I'd rather be dead." Those were her exact words. That is what the disease of addiction does to those people who don't have it, who are just, if you will, receiving the shrapnel from us. And it's that intense, and it is just absolutely that demonstrative in how damaging it can be to you. Physically, intellectually, emotionally, it just doesn't leave anything. It just tears you absolutely to pieces. And we always think, well, the solution is if that loved one would just stop drinking or using drugs, everything would be okay. And it's just not the case. You know, the pain that you are suffering and going through sometimes takes years to be able to bring to conclusion. And you know, a lot of what Pam and Bill talk about is how to expedite that, to be able to not analyze those feelings, but to understand and accept them, and to be able to live with them in a positive manner. You know, not too long ago, it's been a couple of years, I was asked to speak at an ANON conference. And when they called and asked me, and I told them, I said, "I think you have the wrong guy. You know, This is Jerry, the alcoholic dope fiend, you know." And she said, no. She'd heard me speak at an AA conference, and she thought that I was able to explain the disease and its behavior ramifications in a way that she thought would be palatable and easy to understand within the Al-Anon family. And I was honored by that. And that's what I did, and explained the root of my problem, the root of our problem, selfishness and self-centeredness. I never focused on the alcohol. The alcohol wasn't the problem. The alcohol was the solution to our problems. And how we get better one day at a time in that slow process. It's almost like watching grass grow, you know. I mean, just little minute growth, little periods at a time. And that's why I just have such respect and admiration for people who stick it out with us. I just don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. But, you know, when I spoke at this conference, and as you know, I speak at a lot of AA conferences. Sure. We got some coming up we're going to tell you about. You know, the mood of the room is almost a party atmosphere, you know, because everybody's sober, everybody's having a good time. You know, hopefully it's going to be a good speaker, and it's just a bonus to our recovery. And this was not the case at the Al-Anon conference. It was very serious and indifferent to me. But why it was so serious was because of the level of pain that was still being suffered within that room that I didn't identify with until that moment. Because, you know, half the folks in this Al-Anon meeting, maybe more, their significant other, their loved one, they were still out there using drugs and alcohol, and these folks were in there trying to save their life. And the burden of pain and suffering that they carried, it was tangible. I could feel it, you know, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to explain to them a little bit about what we do so that they understand a little bit more. And I understood so much more of their pain. And that's what I needed to know. Because, you know, honestly, within the recovering community and Alcoholics Anonymous, sometimes the Al-Anon's a butt of jokes, sure, you know, and that has changed. And one very significant thing happened to me. And, you know, I learned the most when somebody's really not trying to teach me anything, but maybe show me something. And down in Myrtle, you know, I go to Myrtle Beach a lot. And beautiful clubhouse there on 67th Avenue. Go there all the time, as well as the Progress Club, too. But at this particular clubhouse, the Al-Anon group has their own meeting room. And there's a big place, and there's a couple of AA meeting rooms in a big speakers room. But, as you look at the Al-Anon room, it's just everything is in perfect order. All the chairs are perfect. There's no dust. The books are just right. Pictures hanging perfectly. Everything is in order. Then you go across the hall to the AA meeting room, and, the pictures are kind of crooked, and there's magazines and there's stuff, and trash needs to be taken out. And people kind of laugh about that. And I laughed about that, those Al-Anon people. And I was there with Dr. B with my sponsor one time. We were down golfing, and I joked about, look at, this, everything in there is just perfect. And he said, do you know why? Do you know why it looks like that? I thought, oh, these people are perfect. They're always trying to do that. He said, no. He said, the reason that room looks that way is because they are so used to cleaning up the mess.
Wow.
Cleaning up after us is it just becomes part of their life. Clean up the mess, And again, this is it sounds insignificant, but it is extremely significant in the way that this disease affects people who don't have it and the devastation that it does to them. And I look back at my own amends process. Was it complete? Was it enough? It was from my heart, absolutely. But today I have so much more of a clear understanding of how that feels, what the pain, what the suffering is for the person who loves us and wants to hold on to us and wants to help us, and then has to make that what I call the ultimate decision of love. And because it is so counterintuitive to, after you have given us money, you've given us shelter, you've given us medical care, you've prayed for us, you've begged us, you've done everything in the world, and we just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then you find out through this program of Al-Anon that you're going to have to stop doing anything for us. And you don't want to. They might die. Well, the point is we are going to die if you continue doing what you're doing, and it's out of love. We know that. But you yourself have become so sick. You've been sucked into the vortex of our disease, and the ramifications really are the same behaviorally. You're not thinking intellectually. You're basing all of your decisions on how you feel at that moment. And how do you feel? Petrified, scared, terrified, questions. You don't know what to do. And now we ask you to let that person go. To let them completely go. No, you can't stay here. No, you can't have the car. No, you can't have any money. No, you can't be a part of this. You can't be a part of my life because you're killing me. And the counterintuitive part is that's the ultimate act of love, because in my case, and the rooms are full of people who are living happy and healthy lives because somebody did that. They took away that last opportunity for us to be able to continue our selfish and self-centered behavior. It sounds rough. It is rough. It's real difficult, but look at the outcome. Look at me. Look at you. And it's because of that love. And to the people in Al-Anon, God bless you and thank you. And to the folks out there right now who have got some questions, and we know you do, tons of questions if you've got an addicted person in your family, go online, go to our website, recoveryforlifechannel.com, and type in Al-Anon, find a meeting by you, go to them, go there, and just walk in. They'll be able to know what's going on by the expression on your face, and they will help you, and they do understand. And what do they understand? The same thing that we do in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. Your pain, your suffering, your pain, not the alcoholic or drug addict in your life, you, and what you are going through.
Well, I have someone in my life who is currently an emotional vampire, if you will, and sucking the life out of me.
It's true, and I watch it almost on a daily basis.
And I have to say no. And, in the very beginning of all this, I was one of those people that was, even though I've been in their shoes, and
that's exactly.
It's so difficult because this is someone who's very close to me, and they are just constantly calling me every 3 or 4 days with a new way to try to manipulate money out of me. I need some food. I need a hotel. I need a place just to sit up for a while so I can rest my feet. My feet hurt. I need a little bit of money. I don't have insurance, so I need to go get my feet looked at because I've been walking. It just never ends, and it's gotten to the point where it is so difficult for me. Just last week, I finally completely shut it down. And this person is many miles away from me right now in another state. And I just told them that I will send you a plane ticket. Not money for a plane ticket.
The ticket itself.
A ticket. I will buy you a ticket. Get on that plane. Come see me, and we will get you some help. But I will not send you any money. And that was last week, and I haven't heard from that person since. So I'm kind of in a precarious situation myself right now because, I haven't heard, and I don't know what's going on, and that person doesn't have a cell phone, and there's no way that I can find out exactly what's going on. Right now, I'm just sitting and I'm hoping, but I know I did the right thing because anytime I send money, and I did.
I've seen you. 100 here, 200 here, 100 here, 200 here, bang, bang,
Right. And I know, and they're quite honest about it. Every time I talk, yeah, well, I know, Rich, I love you, but, I'm a dope fiend, and it happened, and I'm sorry about that. But listen, I do need a hotel, and, and it just goes on and on. So I can relate to what somebody's going through right now and how difficult it is to how difficult it is just to say, no more.
Let me put just wear you out. I mean, you're going through that and I did it and you did it too, both as drug addicts. We knew we could wear you out to the point where it was just easier for you to give me the money or give me the hotel room or give me what I want just to get rid of me.
And it's very difficult for me because I have been there. I was him. I did that for years and years. And when the manipulation didn't work on that person, I would move on to the next person. And I manipulate till the door's shut. And then finally, when there was no one left to manipulate, I had to come to some sort of closure with the whole deal. And I think that started me on my path to recovery. But I know this person. I'm the last straw because he knows me and he knows my life and he knows what I'm about and where I've been. And he has nowhere else really to turn at this point. So I'm hoping that my final no mores, is taking hold as we speak right now.
Well, what he does know, and we know this, that you offer the solution. The question is, does he want the solution?
He doesn't want to hear it. Yeah. He just doesn't want to hear it, and it's one excuse after another. It's I don't want to have to go to meetings. It's the God thing. The God thing's always the big thing with him. Yeah. I can't get to a meeting. What do you mean you can't get to a meeting? I said, you don't have any problem going across town to get drugs, but you somehow can't make a meeting 4 blocks away? Well, I know, Rich, but my feet hurt, and can I get some money for a hotel?
An answer for everything.
Oh, it just goes on and on and on. So I completely relate to what somebody might be going through right now.
Well, I hope that he takes you up on that opportunity because you do have the solution. And if he does get here, we will offer it to him. And speaking of the solution for everybody, of course, if you are a drug addict, we suggest Narcotics Anonymous. You're going to find people in there who understand, and that's what you're looking for. The folks maybe like in your family, they don't understand. They just think you're crazy. Stop taking drugs. Everything will be all right. It's much deeper than that. This is a very significant disease that you are suffering from that is extremely painful. And in NA, they will understand that pain. The exact same thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. Understand your pain. When you can make that understanding, and it's a two-way street, and you'll feel it, you can begin. You can begin. And it's the exact same thing, and I think even more significant in Al-Anon, is that deep, unidentified, undefinable pain that you have got going through, the suffering that is mixed with so many other emotions, everything from rage to total anxiety. And we understand those feelings, and we want you to be able to get to a place where people can help you. Look at us. We'll give you the perfect example of two people who were completely lost in society. And that's Rich and that's myself. And by doing this, getting the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and practicing 12 steps of rational behavior, our lives got better. The same thing will happen to you. The same thing will happen in Al-Anon as it will in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous.
Hey, coming up, Bill and Pam Roberts. They are going to talk a lot about Al-Anon, and they're going to talk a lot about where I just said I was and where they are, and they've got 3 children right now in recovery. So they're coming up. This, of course, is Trudge the Road. A big thank you to Karen Treatment Centers. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Karen Treatment Centers. Karen is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Karen specializes in men's and women's services as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-850-6023 or go to their website, Karen.org. That's CARON.org.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Jerry talks with Bill and Pam Roberts, a couple that knows addiction very well. Bill is an alcoholic, and they also have 3 kids in recovery. That's coming up next on Trudge the Road.
Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023 or by going to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org.
And thank you very much to the Caron Treatment Centers, our sponsors. We appreciate that immensely. This is Trudge the Road, and Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to people suffering from the disease of addiction to drugs and alcohol, and every bit as importantly, their family and friends. We understand your suffering. It is immense, and we hope on this program to bring some answers to the many questions that you have, and of course, ultimately, our prayer is to find solutions to this dilemma. And we did it for ourselves, so hopefully we can pass that along. We are blessed today to have a couple of people with us, Bill and Pam Roberts. Thank you first very much for coming. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. You describe it as a lonely, isolated, and terrifying experience. This is when your oldest son hit bottom for the first time and landed in treatment. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah. Our son was 17, and he had been struggling in school. It was the classic. All the friends started to change. You know, the grades started to drop, and he got caught with some marijuana and drugs by us. You know, over the last couple of weeks, and then we finally kind of said, you know what, this has got to stop. And he came to us and said, you know, I don't think I can, and if I did, I don't think I could survive without these drugs. And that was our first time, and he was 17, and we ended up in a psych ward in Ambler, Pennsylvania, and we thought there was a drug and alcohol. You know, we thought that there was a mental health piece because he was struggling with depression and so forth. But when the nurse, came up to me and said, your son is an addict, it felt like someone had slapped me across my face, and that was our first experience. Dealing with this. It was funny. Bill and I have said this before. We felt like it was easier to hear that your son had a mental health condition than it was to hear that he was an addict.
Absolutely. I think, and you might agree with me, Bill, being the perspective of an addicted person yourself, I'd rather have been called crazy than drunk.
Absolutely. And when you see that with your kid, it's one thing that they have a mental health issue and you can deal with that. There is stigma associated with that, but as a parent, hearing that they're a drug addict and the issues that the things that they've been doing, I think it also affects you as a parent. It goes straight down to who you are and how you let this happen.
Yeah.
So it hits us in. It was a double whammy at that time. It was a horrible place and a horrible sort of time for us.
Do the words fear and confusion apply?
Absolutely, because we were terrified for Matt. When you have a child that is, suffering mentally and thinking about things like taking his life rather than, having to be able to deal with that, that there's so much pain. And as a parent, you're right there with your kid. But also, what do we do? And there really wasn't a lot of support around there. Certainly, our friends had no idea. Our family had no idea how to support us. A lot of the same kind of thoughts were going through their heads. What kind of parents are they that they've got a child that's an addict? And we knew that. That was our experience. And then also, where do we go for help? There was nowhere for us. Even the social workers didn't have any great ideas. I found Caron on the website. We were just kind of moving, I was, searching the internet and happened to find Caron. And that's where we ended up sending Matt. But, in our minds, this was going to be the solution. They would fix Matt, and then everybody would move on. That this really, wasn't as much about us as it was about Matt, but this was the solution. And so that was the first step in this journey, was that understanding.
Let me ask you, though, at this stage, did you even really recognize your own suffering and pain? You're so overwhelmed by what's going on with your child. Did the significance of what was happening to you emotionally even project itself in your mind?
No,
I think we were in shock. I think when parents first find out that your child's suicidal and that he's been labeled a drug addict, I used drugs and alcohol all my life, and to just somehow never saw this coming. It still hits you like a brick, and you don't approach anything with recovery rationally. And I think even those people that are in recovery, because we have a lot of friends whose kids are showing the signs or are in active addiction, and they've been in recovery maybe 20 years. They don't see it coming either. Mm-hmm. It's something I think that when it hits you as a parent, it's a completely irrational response that comes out of you, and it's all fear-based.
And you talk about that, your life has become unmanageable, and you're right. You don't recognize that piece of it when you're going through it. For me, I started to go numb. I mean, I knew, I was crying, I was upset, but it was a feeling of such despair that I couldn't really function. And at the same time, I was trying to control people's reaction. I was trying to control him because Bill gets angry. So when he gets full of fear, he gets angry. Mm-hmm. When I get full of fear, I am full of despair mm-hmm. and sadness. Intense sadness. So I was trying to control what was told and what was not told to our other two children and my family, and trying to keep him at bay from what's going on with the doctors and Matt, because I didn't want him to make the situation worse with the angry. But that's exhausting, trying to do all that kind of controlling. Yeah. But that was normal for me. In my mind, that was what I had to do. I wasn't even thinking about, Pam, how are you doing? No, exactly. I didn't check in once with, what do you need? Who's helping you out? It was always me driving that. And that's part of my, what I found out is part of my problem. And I wasn't willing to ask for that
I'm
help.
sure that you experienced some kind of a bottom with this.
Multiple bottoms. That was not honesty. My first. All right. Absolutely. That only got me to that first stage of, this is going to be hard. Mm-hmm. My bottom was a couple of years later. Okay.
Yeah, mm-hmm. That's really not unusual, especially mm-hmm. for a mom. That intuition to hang on and try and fix things, I understand today. Mm-hmm. And the pain is just, it's amazing. And as we shared before, I had the wonderful opportunity to speak at an ANON conference. Mm-hmm. And as I told, when they asked me to speak, I really thought they had the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. And it was somebody who just thought that, I could share a little bit about the way we are and why we do the things we do. And I did, and it was an absolutely amazing experience, because I speak at a lot of AA conferences, mm-hmm. which are everybody's sober and everybody's happy and everybody's mm-hmm. laughing, and it's a lot of fun. And the demeanor of this particular event was very serious. Very serious, and what I recognized so much was the pain. It was just, it was tangible, and then to understand that most of the people who were there still had a family member out there, mm-hmm. and they're trying to save their own life. So this mm-hmm. brings us to the point where you've hit that bottom and realize you've got to save yourself here.
Right. And that was actually a couple of years later. So between that time when our son was 17 and he was 24, I think we went through, I lost count. So I would say between 7 and 10 different rehabs, halfway houses, psych wards, jail.
That's my story. That's my story.
Cool. Pretty much. And along the way, our second son was having problems. Along the way, our daughter. So we have three kids in recovery, thank God. But during that time, I still was maintaining that, I could do this. I could keep everybody together. I could make, everybody healthy. And it was after our son had been through jail, got out, went to a psych ward, and then was back in Philly at the crack houses again, that I finally realized it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what I did, that he was going to do this drug owned him. This disease owned him, and if I was going to be able to survive this, that I had to start figuring out what I needed to do. And that, that was my bottom. So I was literally in the back of my closet, rocking back and forth. It was totally, when you talk about being in a corner, being put into a corner, I literally was in the back of my and crying and realizing I don't have control over this. The only thing I can do to be able to survive this is to start working on myself. What is it that I need to do? And I was absolutely the last holdout in my family, because at that time, Bill was in recovery and Kate, and they all had given up on me. I kept trying to save our oldest son. I kept saying, I cannot let this man die. And I realized I don't have that kind of power. So that was my bottom when I realized that.
But yeah, maybe the jumping off point there, and I understand
But that's when
that.
she stepped up.
Yeah.
That actually is when Pam surrendered. That's when she also decided that she was going to change. And she did that by saying goodbye. She said, I'm not going to plan your funeral anymore. I'm going to listen to what other people are telling me. And I know I can't control this. And we took him, we dropped him off at the Salvation Army, and he stopped drinking.
And this is completely counterintuitive behavior.
Absolutely. So your natural instincts is to love and protect. That's a mom. That's a dad, really. And, and what I had to do is rewire my natural instincts. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing at the time, but I was able to say to my son, I love you, I believe in you, but I'm not going to watch you die. And he believed it. He believed it. And, I understood, maybe I'd said something similar to that, but he never really believed it. That time he did. And I believed it too. And then that's exactly what I had to do, is start working on
everything we were doing.
What part did I play?
Everything we were doing as loving parents wasn't working.
Yeah.
And when we turned him over to the love and kindness of strangers who weren't going to give him money, weren't going to bail him out, weren't going to make excuses for him, weren't going to drive him to his next hearing, those people at AA meetings, and they said, you're going to have to do some of this by yourself. And he got it. So all of our best thinking as alcoholics doesn't work, and all of our best thinking as parents sometimes doesn't work either. And Pam really did change. She took, as you said, that hardwiring that she has, that natural instinct, and she said, okay, I'm going to have the strength and the courage to step back and not try to fix him anymore.
I think it's deeper than that. I think you redefined love.
Yep.
I redefined the definition of love.
And I had to learn how to love this child differently. All my kids, as it turned out, and that was a big piece for me, because as a mom, you can say, I'm not going to watch you die, and you can let go, but there's a piece of you that says, if I am going to surrender, what am I surrendering to? And so I had to develop my own sense of spirituality to believe that it's not me, this higher power. It's something else, that I could count on, so that when I said, I've done all I can do, and now I need to be able to turn this over and let the rest happen, because I knew I had to get out of the way. That whatever dance we were doing, Matt and I, and this applied with my daughter too, because she relapsed, and I had to say the same kind of words to her. I'll drop you off at this apartment, but we are not going to do this. I cannot have you in my house if this is going to be happening. So I got to practice this a couple of times, these hard conversations, and say, this is what I need to do. And by doing that, I knew that at least I wasn't contributing to what was going on, and I'm giving my kid the best shot they have at a healthy, happy life. I just had to realize that it wasn't going to be me that was going to be providing that. It had to be them, and other people,
It's it, and that's it. That's the redefinition of love, and it's just counterintuitive to the instincts of motherhood.
Yeah.
It's courage, and I know there's a lot of faith that goes along with that, and we need to know more about that. Now, as a couple, you have not kept this a secret what you have learned and felt it necessary to share. So what you have done is organized an opportunity for other people who are lonely, isolated, and terrified to be able to ask some questions, get some answers, and get some support. It's kind of Al-Anon on steroids, I guess, if you would, And I think it's a wonderful program. It's the Karen Support Group. It's in 14, you've got it in 8 states. How many states are you in now?
I think they're in 8 states now.
Okay. All right. We're going to find out more about this and what you do and how you could maybe on an ad continuum basis in your own community and recovering community pick up on some of these things that Bill and Pam are about to share with us. It's just remarkable. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your openness and honesty. We'll be back with more from Bill and Pam Roberts on Trudge the Road Radio.
Trudge the Road is sponsored by Karen Treatment Centers. Karen is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Karen specializes in men's and women's services, as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-850-6023 or go to their website, Karen.org. That's CARON.org. Karen.org.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up is part 2 of Jerry's interview with Bill and Pam and how they are now helping others in coping with the addicted family. It's next on Trudge the Road.
Trudge the Road is sponsored by Karen Treatment Centers. Karen is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023 or by going to their website, Karen.org. That's CARON.org.
Again, thanks so much to Karen. We appreciate it immensely. We're back with more of Trudge the Road. My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic. This radio program is all about the disease of addiction. Those of us who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, and every bit as important, family and friends. You suffer tremendously, and we hope, some answers to the many questions that you have. And ultimately, our goal and our prayer is to provide some solutions to this incredible dilemma. And we are getting a lot of wonderful information today from Bill and Pam Roberts, who 13 years ago had to experience and I will quote you, the most lonely, isolated, and terrifying experience of your life when their child hit bottom, and you were all forced to cope with the disease. Not just him, everybody. And you've done a wonderful job, and you explained that loneliness, you explained that fear, you explained that I don't know what to do, the questions, and you went through the process, and you found these, you helped yourself, you helped your child, you found your own bottom, and then realized that, and goodness can't contain itself. It really can't. It has to be shared, and this is true goodness, what you're doing right now. And it's called the Karen Parent Support Group. Now, and as I will emphasize again, as I can only imagine, what it's like, because I don't know what it's like to have a child who is addicted. My child is not, and what do I do? Where do I go? And to recognize that the questions and the answers sometimes aren't exactly parallel, and that is really why you've got this support group. And I want you to take us to the beginning of why you did it, how you did it, and what it's doing now.
Well, we started it 5.5 years ago, and there were 8 parents, and we basically got together because we wanted to continue to share our experiences. We had met at Karen. Our kids had all been going through recovery, and there's a unique feeling of being able to, one parent talking to another parent saying, hey, I'm going through this. What would you do? Have you had this happen to you? Share that type of information, and it was so beneficial. We could also laugh with each other. We could also there's a need to normalize your life just a little bit. And so to be able to have those opportunities where we could laugh and cry together and understand, the different experiences and gain strength and courage from that, because there are tough decisions sometimes you have to make. And to be able to have other folks with you, kind of batting for you and saying, hang in there, these are the things that you need to do to get to the other side, was hugely helpful. And so that's how it started with 8. And I think the story goes, we had a friend call us whose son was in the basement of his college and had tried to commit suicide because he was hooked on Ambien. And they called us because they knew we, had some family members that were struggling as well. And we brought them to the meeting. And it was at that meeting we realized that this is what we're here for. We need to go find other parents to bring, because that couple got some strength and courage and hope from us, and also resources to say, hey, here's some good people for you to talk to. And so we started trolling Al-Anon meetings, to be honest with you, and listening for parents and going up to them afterwards and saying, hey, we've got this group, we're getting started, come join us. And that was the initial start.
And I think what you said was right, is that I'm an alcoholic, and reaching out and helping someone else is what keeps me sober. And I think from the perspective of parents in crisis, as we move through crisis to a transition to, we're starting to recover, to stay in the program, we have to stay connected. We have to reach out and help other people. And Karen was instrumental in bringing us all together. It was like the sun and moon and stars. They had an office in Philadelphia. They gave us some administrative support and some educational materials, that kind of thing. So we had a clean place to meet. I'm used to church basements, and this was a really nice
cool
alternative. But and we got together, and it was a welcoming kind of an atmosphere. They also then start sending parents to us who had kids in our area, parents who were in crisis, and it just took off from there. So we went from meeting every other week to meeting every week, and then we started as some of us became old timers, so to speak, with some time in the parent group, we started a newcomers meeting because our stories were almost too raw for people when they first walk in. When they start hearing about their kids going to prison and psych wards and being prostitutes and being destitute, living on the streets, they say, that's not my kid, and they leave, or they don't want their kid to be like us.
Sure.
You know, so we started softening those meetings for the newcomers, and that helped a lot. And it formed new cores from within. And it's like a beginner's meeting with AA. As people grew up together, now they're starting their meetings, and it's just sort of spreading and growing.
And the similarity would be, back to AA, is what you're going to do is coach and form these people basically to take some counterintuitive measures to bring solutions to their dilemma. And that's very difficult, and of course takes a great deal of emotional support. Let me just plead guilty to, as a chemical dependency counselor 20 years ago, I was absolutely ill-equipped to deal with the family, very well equipped to deal with the alcoholic, but we'd call it the fractured family because they'd show up only on Saturday, and they had the look.
Right.
This look that was, it's impossible to describe, but it's synonymous with everybody suffering from this. And the point of crisis is what you were talking about that I wanted to bring you. What is it like? Because most of the people right now really listening to this radio program are in that position. They're the ones who have a loved one who is in crisis.
Right.
And they've got that look right now. And I want to take you, that look, and tell us, what are you going to do here to help this person?
Right. We do that, with these folks and with, the experts too. And that's another key piece. We are not the experts. They, as parents, are not the experts. They need to get expert help.
Every one of the situations is different. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, now is younger and younger kids with harder and harder drugs.
It's the new face of addiction. We've been talking about that in the last couple of episodes.
We sure have been seeing it.
We're having a hard time telling a parent what to do with a 15-year-old who's been using heroin for a year and a half or whatever, and breaking into cars and in trouble with the law. And that's getting to be a major issue. But in going back to the original things where Johnny's going off to college, supposedly, and they're going to spend $40,000 a year or whatever for tuition and sending him off. And so I've got to get him into rehab by July 27th, so he's back home so I can fit him up with his clothes and get him up. Those days are over. We try to tell parents that, that it's not a matter of being angry or tough on them. It's a matter of being informed. We try to tell them, don't treat your kid like your kid. Treat your kid like your neighbor's kid. You're not thinking rationally when it's your own child. You have expectations. There's things you thought of the day they were born in terms of what you wanted their life to be. And bottom line is you're not in control. And most of the things that the parents are doing in response to this they're very often they're harmful.
With the best intentions.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. But, giving a lot of money to an alcoholic in training is usually not a good idea. Letting them go to, concerts and that kind of stuff. So we're just trying to get at the behaviors for the parent and let them see their part of it. So if the parents change, the kids have a better shot at getting this.
And that's the message, as a mom speaking, is that, that I can let go. I can make changes in the way I love my kid because I know that I am helping him. But the way I was loving them before was not helping them, was not, getting them, healthy and to a point where they could be successful and thrive. So that's the goal of any parent is I want my kid to be happy. I want them to be able to be successful. And what we have to do is learn a different way of supporting that.
You said something to me that you would not trade this experience.
No.
Why?
Because of the relationships that we have now with our kids and the relationship too that Bill and I have, because this also impacted our marriage.
It had to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, scary, really scary at times. And so to be able to learn a new way to live, to learn a new way to respond to the world, and think has given us a family that I never dreamed I could have.
Do the words happy, joyous, and free apply there?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. And just to be able to have open and honest conversations with your children and know that there's a mechanism if I'm not feeling right that I can talk without worrying about, am I saying the wrong thing or am I hurting somebody? I mean, that's been such a gift.
We've got 3 kids
And a granddaughter.
And when we would get together at holidays a couple of years back, 2 of them were in recovery. And the third one wasn't. He was still out there. Mm-hmm. And he would show up, and we'd be sitting around the kitchen table talking and laughing, and everybody be sharing about being in school or what job they were doing and the relationships they were in. And he was standing off to the side and wondering what happened. What's with you guys? Where's my family?
Right.
And but fortunately, he got recovery. And
Wow.
So now when we get together, we're flying out this weekend because he's going to pick up his 1-year chip, God willing.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, things change. And that's what we wouldn't change.
Oh, my
It's
God.
that feeling of being back together as a family.
And, and as I told you earlier, and I think it's incredibly applicable towards your story, is that, and I know that you're well aware of this, Bill, that the founder of our program, Bill Wilson, in New York back in the 30s, sitting on a bed when it was all over with, man, they were going to lock him up, said the words, I wonder if I can't get sober by helping another alcoholic get sober. What we know today is, how can I, as a supportive parent, as a good member of the community, what can I do to help the other person out there who suffers? And the truth of the matter is that it does answer the question of the essence of human nature. You and I were created to love. And the true definition of love, which we've learned around here, is being of ultimate service to others. And that is, again, why we were created. And you're certainly fulfilling that role. And I hope that God continues to bless you on your mission. And I will pray for you. And I sit here in admiration of what you've done. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Bill and Pam Roberts. And more of Trudge the Road is right around the corner. This is the Trudge the Road Radio Network.
Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Caron specializes in men's and women's services as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-850-6023 or go to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org.
You're listening to Trudge the Road. Coming up next, Rich and Jerry talk about the spiritual experience. It's next on Trudge the Road.
Trudge the Road is sponsored by Caron Treatment Centers. Caron is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, with treatment facilities in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas, and offices in Bermuda, Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. They can be reached by calling 1-800-854-6023 or by going to their website, caron.org. That's CARON.org.
And yes, a big thank you to Caron Treatment Centers. Very cool that they are our sponsor. We're your hosts. I'm Rich, a recovered drug addict.
My name is Jerry. I'm a sober alcoholic.
Jerry, tell us why we do this show.
Trudge the Road is a radio program dedicated to people suffering from the disease of addiction to drugs and alcohol. And every bit as important, family and friends. You suffer tremendously. You got a lot of questions. Hopefully, this program will supply you some of the answers that you have. And our ultimate goal and prayer is to be able to provide a solution to this incredible dilemma, the disease of addiction.
Now, you're going to be out and about doing a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to join you. Coming up August 11th, we'll be at Mount Sinai,
In
which
Long
is
Island.
Long Island,
Yeah.
New York Summerfest.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, so we will be there, and hopefully, if you get a chance, you're anywhere in the area,
If you're
please
in,
do
if you're
stop
in New
by.
York City, come on up to the island.
And August 24th, you're going to be out speaking.
At State College, Pennsylvania, for the Pennsylvania Conference of Young People and Alcoholics Anonymous, PensiPA. And I'll be the Friday night speaker, August the 24th. Looking really forward to that. I love being around the young people in AA. And as you know, I got here when I was 20, which was a long, long, long time ago, And at that time, the sociology of AA is a little bit different, and there really wasn't a focus on people my age and my recovery. And most of my peers, of course, at that time, if you were 30, to me, well, it would have been 90, were older and trying to assimilate into that sociology was a little bit tougher because I didn't have the same issues. I'd never been married and I didn't have finance issues, but I'd been drinking like a fish for 6 years alcoholically, and it was a bit tough. As a matter of fact, I had resentments. The thing I hated the worst, and I would leave a meeting. As soon as I walked into a meeting, I would say to myself, if someone tells me that they've spilled more than they ever drank, that one, that would be it. I would leave a meeting if somebody said that. That's of course crazy. But today, not to mention also the generation gap was a huge issue at that time. I'm a baby boomer, and as you know, the greatest generation in the baby boomers had a little falling out there in the 60s. Sociologists even gave it a name, the generation gap. So there was that difficulty. And, a pat on the back to the baby boomers because we were a little bit more welcoming to Generation X and Y as they come in. But they've come in with such energy and such strength and such recovery. And that creates that opportunity to really, actually, I think, add, if you will, character attributes. What are you going to get from that? Courage is the first one. And let's define courage. To us, I think as alcoholics, when we think of something courageous, that's lack of fear. Au contraire. Courage is going through something that scares you to death. That's what courage is. And facing each one of the steps with life on life's terms, as the foundation, truth, reality, is real scary. It's frightening. There's been a lot of damage. We've created a lot of chaos, and that can be absolutely overwhelming. And that's where this spirituality, this spiritual awakening, this spiritual experience happens and gives you the ability to not just cope with these issues as they present themselves, but gives you an opportunity to exercise them behaviorally in a manner that is healthy and bring to conclusion some things that could possibly in the future kill you, that poison in the soul that we talk about.
Well, and you're talking about spiritual awakening, but for those people that are listening to this show right now that are deep in their addiction, whether it be drugs or whether it be alcohol, this seems like such a far-fetched idea. I know let's go back in time. Let's go back 11 years when I was deep into my addiction and I was to hear a show like this and you're talking about a spiritual awakening and you're talking about happy, joyous, and free. I might be listening, but I'm thinking to myself, as I'm sure someone is right now listening to this, there is no freaking way.
Yeah.
There is no freaking way that
this is ever possible. I use those exact words, except they were a little bit rougher.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously we're on the radio, so
right.
I'm going to go ahead and refrain from exactly what I was saying, but I was so deep into my addiction that it was all just going by my ears. That's not me. That can't be me. There's no way that that's ever going to happen for me. I told you it was at the point where I'm in the radio business, as you are, Jerry, and I would be offered jobs in different cities. And my first question before salary, before what kind of ratings do you have, before who am I working for, what's the company, was, do you think I can score some drugs while I'm there? Mm-hmm. Because that was my lifeline. That's what kept me going.
I'll take it one step further. I've worked in radio stations where I had a contractual agreement that nobody in management would come near the control room without giving me 30 minutes advance notice.
Wow.
Because what was going on in there and how at the time within, the broadcast industry, behavior like that was a little bit more accepted. Thank God those days are gone, but that is the reality. What you said is, how can a spiritual answer to this dilemma of mine? That's crazy. It's not crazy. Just look at the statistics. Look at the facts of what people succeed in their lives by coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, by taking that absolute counterintuitive measure. It's really simple. The 12 steps are, as I've said, 12 steps to rational behavior. And if you look at it, look at your record, look at your record, look at your record. Now, if you're one of those folks out there who is still drinking and is still using, what's your life look like right now? What kind of a mess is it? And it's okay. It's you've done your best. You never intended for this to happen. What we offer here is just another way to do things, and the outcome and the goal is still the same. Because what are you looking for out there? Matt, our producer over there, he has a drink of alcohol for reasons of conviviality. For social reasons. Not an alcoholic. For us, it's absolutely it's medicine that we take to change the way that we feel, and then what happens is it changes the way we behave, and there's some serious consequences for that. This is a disease, and it's a magnificent disease that just has such consequences on everybody we take. You know what happens? I have one drink, and I am instantly antisocial. That's what happens. One drink, antisocial.
I'm the same way when you talk about drugs. But also the difference is Matt can have a drink or two and stop and then go about his evening. The difference, I think, with us is I couldn't just do one line. Oh, yeah, that's great. And then my mind would immediately start thinking, well, when this wears off, I wonder what I'm going to do then. Or if I was to have a drink, what's the point in drinking if I'm not going to get drunk?
Exactly. And it comes down to the three feelings that we're left with at the end. And if you're at the end, whether it's alcohol or drugs, you only experience three emotions: elation, anxiety, and despair. That's all you I'm going to give you an example. We scored the drugs! Woo-hoo! Elation! The drugs are starting to run out. Uh-oh. Anxiety. The drugs are gone. Despair. What cures despair? Elation. You got to get back. That's that cycle, you see. And those are the only three feelings that we are experiencing. And there couldn't be anything that is more selfish or self-centered than that. But that's absolutely what it is. And then, it simply gets to a point, it did with us, where we were a mind that would not work and a body that would not die. That was what it came down to. A mind that would not work, could not work, and a body that wouldn't die. And that's just a horrible, horrible place to be. Dr. B, who is my sponsor, and he's not my physician, but he said something, and I'll quote him when he was giving an AA talk, and it really stuck with me, that he's treated diseases. His whole medical career, he's been a doctor for 45 years. He's treated every kind of disease you can imagine: heart disease, kidney disease, cancer, HIV. He's treated them all, and he said this, and he said it publicly, that alcoholism, in comparison to those diseases are all a walk in the park. That's how serious and how big this disease is and how overcoming, because it gets everything. It gets you emotionally. It gets you physically. It gets you spiritually. It takes absolutely everything that is good in your life and destroys it. And what we do here, one step at a time, one day at a time, is give it back to you, and give it back in a manner where you can enjoy what we do, which is happiness, joy, freedom. Those words, if you're drinking right now, don't mean anything. You don't know what happy is. You certainly don't know what joy is. And freedom, not even in your language, because you're locked absolutely in a jail of your own making. I was there and had the key, but refused to unlock the door.
Hey, listen, if you're looking for a meeting and you don't know where to turn, or you're looking for some more stuff that Trudge the Road brings you each week, a couple of places you can find it. recoveryforlifechannel.com. That's Jerry and I's website, recoveryforlifechannel.com. It also has contacts on there, so you can send us an email for whatever reason. If you just want to reach out and say hi, or maybe you're thinking about something, we'll definitely be there for you. You can go to YouTube, just type Trudge the Road Radio in the search engine, and I think we've got about 11 episodes up there right now, but more on the way. And, if you can't catch a meeting, it's a great place to go.
It'll work, man. It will work. And we absolutely love doing it. It's a practice of our 12-step work, and we're very grateful to Karen and all their people and the way we've been treated up here at their treatment center. Just fantastic. Father Bill, Reverend Jack, meeting a lot of great people, and we can't wait to get back.
Yeah, Facebook also. We're trying to get on that Facebook thing going. Just type Trudge the Road Radio in Facebook as well. Once again, Jerry and I at Summerfest in Long Island, coming up August 11th, and Pensy Paul for you August 24th.
I'll be speaking there that Friday night. Really excited about it. That's going to be a great conference for young people in AA. So if you're anywhere up in the Northeast, make the investment, come, and it'll change your life.
This has been Trudge the Road. Trudge the Road is sponsored by Karen Treatment Centers. Karen is a nonprofit leading provider of drug and alcohol addiction treatment. Karen specializes in men's and women's services as well as young adult males and females, plus a relapse program and outpatient services. If you're concerned about yourself or a loved one, call 1-800-850-6023 or go to their website, Karen.org. That's CARON.org.
You've been listening to Trudge the Road. If you would like to contact Rich or Jerry, log on to our website, which is recoveryforlifechannel.com. And join us next week on this same great radio station, which is part of the Trudge the Road radio network.